All right. Good morning. Good morning. If you are watching the replay, I hope you're having a good day or whatever time of day it is for you. So I am going to go ahead and get started. Hopefully some people will come into the chat, but I do want to make this video as concise as possible. So I'm going to go ahead and get started. Let me pull my notes up. So the quote that I have up, our enemy is not each other. Our enemy is always white supremacy, capitalism, colonialism, and imperialism. Each of those isms could be unpacked in a separate video because it's just such a loaded statement, but I think it's a very true statement. I don't have who said the quote because I couldn't find that, but those are not my words. So I've noticed a lot of things happening on the internet. This has been for a few years now that I've noticed people intentionally trying to create division within the African diaspora. Excuse me, within the African diaspora. And, I'll give you guys a couple of examples of things I've seen over the years, but I really, I wanted to make this about healing for the African diaspora instead of making it about the wars. We will talk about the issues that cause some of the strife, but I also want to put a piece in at some point in the video about how can we start to move towards healing, because these narratives, some of these narratives are not helpful. They're not moving us forward. Some of them are, there's different movements that's going on. So I want to talk about what I see as the positive and maybe some of the negative things about some of those movements. So first, let me talk a little bit about things that I've seen. So I know that this might have been a couple years ago. This was on my old channel, and it was actually one of my most viewed videos. It was me responding to somebody. Her name is Saran. And, up until that point, I had watched her channel for a little bit, and, she's very passionate. She's very intelligent, but she was just very angry. And there's nothing wrong with being angry because I certainly have my days, but it felt like her anger started to stew to a point where it just kind of mirrored the argument that white supremacists use or xenophobists use. And I don't think people realize that when they cross over into that territory. So she was responding to a piece, And, to my surprise, she started going in on, she called us Black Continentals or Black immigrants. And it was just the way she talked about it. It just was so divisive. She went in about the culture. Just some of the things were petty, but some of the things were really, really like deeply hurtful. And I was just wondering, like, what is the point of this? What is the point of you doing all of this? There has to be people who are Africans, who are Caribbean, in your chat. And I've noticed more and more, there's a lot of people who just don't care. They just don't give a crap, guys. Like, they will disrespect you, and some people will stick around with them. But that's another story. So, I had responded to her, and a lot of people came for me, but I didn't care. And then a lot of people agreed with me as well. It was just a very divisive argument. Recently, I've seen people like Nosy Ho. Hers is more ignorant, at least with Seren. Seren will try to bring in different pieces, from history and give examples. Whereas with Nosy Ho, she was just straight up hating. She was just straight up like spewing vitriol, right? And I'm not giving Seren any props or anything, just trying to show you how there's different angles. There are some people who come about it intellectually, and there are some people who are just very vitriolic in the way that they present it. So, that was the first time I noticed somebody on a public platform doing that, to Seren. And it totally blew me away, because even though, I am a Caribbean person, I'm Black, but I was born in Jamaica. In my mind, I'm like, I feel like there's room for us to celebrate our differences, but also recognize that, we are Black, like we're Black people, we're still one in my mind, right? So seeing that type of narrative was very surprising to me. It was just very disturbing. And I didn't understand it, because I felt like we're so divided already as a nation, as Black people, that argument doesn't do much to help us. So I want to unpack some of it a little bit and talk about what I think is there's a difference between speaking on issues and spreading hate, right? I don't want this argument to feel like I'm silencing, what some people feel about different communities in the African diaspora. That is not my intention. However, I do think there's a fine line between us speaking on issues and, just being hateful. So how do we do that? How do we bridge that gap? So I'm going to get into my first point here. The first thing I think is an issue with the diaspora is perceived insults or disrespect. So for me, that was a big part of it for me. The way people were talking about things in a very disrespectful manner, tearing down cultures, making fun of things people don't understand. And we're going to talk about how this happens on both sides, by the way. So, I'm going to share examples about people doing it to Caribbeans and Africans. And then I'm also going to share, examples of Caribbeans and Africans doing it to Black Americans, because that's not okay. Good morning. I don't know who's in chat, but I'm going to keep going because I want to make sure I'm getting to my points here. So, I want to unpack different examples that I've seen across the diaspora of people doing different things. So one of the first things I want to talk about in terms of disrespect and perceived insults, I'm going to start with pieces from my culture, because I am Jamaican, right? So, the first point I have here is Black Americans think they are better than Black immigrants or other Black people in the African diaspora. I don't think this is true for everyone. I think that this is a problem that I see, and it goes both ways. I will, like I said, I'll talk about what I've seen. Like when I was a kid, there were a lot of people who I didn't see that from, but then there were people that tried to kind of make you feel less than because you might have had an accent, or they can tell you haven't been here that long. And when you're kids, it's different, right? We're testing limits, we're figuring out our world. But when you're a whole grown ass adult and you're doing these things, it's very distasteful and very ignorant. And so there's different ways that people portray that. There's different ways people portray that they're better than other immigrants. It might be by demeaning the language that they speak or the dialect that they speak. It might be making fun of their features or making fun of something from their culture. I forget, Seren said something, it was really petty, just like something about weird bananas, which is plantains. Plantains are good as shit. But anyway, it's just weird things that people will like try to hate on you for. your accent, different things. And then on the flip side, I think that Black immigrants do the same thing, right? Like when I was growing up, I had people in my family, my father had said, "Oh yeah, don't date none of these Yankee boys," or like he made comments like Yankee in Jamaican culture, at least in America, is a term for Black Americans, right? And so he would say stuff like that, like, "Oh, don't bring home the Yankee boy," or things like that, and just making like gross generalizations about Black Americans, right? And that's messed up. That's not okay. So you see what I'm saying? Like there's both sides to it. Like the Black Americans say things about Black immigrants. Black immigrants say things about Black Americans. There's all types of stereotypes and disrespect and perceived insults. So same thing, the other thing I want to say, good morning, Chocolate Bay. Thank you for being here, love. Thank you so much for being here. I appreciate you. How you doing? So I was talking about the disrespect like in the diaspora that we do to each other. I talked about how Black Americans disrespect other Black people in the diaspora, and how it's also the opposite of that as well. So I was sharing about when I was a kid, how my father was saying things. The other thing is that I think there's a big issue because a lot of Black continentals or Black people that are not from America don't realize how much Black Americans have done to build that country. Like they get disrespected in their own country. They're second-class citizens. And really, they built that country from the bottom up. Just because it's not listed in the history book in the right way, just because they don't get the accolades that they should get, doesn't mean that's not the case. And I think that's something that we fail to realize as Black immigrants, that those people put in sweat, blood, and tears to build that damn country, and they're still getting crumbs, right? So that's something, when that hit me, I don't remember at what point that hit me in my journey. Because I had a whole bunch of friends growing up. I had African friends, Caribbean friends, Black American friends. I have all kinds of people because I love being with different people, especially my people, right? So, it's very interesting. I can see how the narrative, another stereotype, Black Americans are lazy, things like that. It's just very damaging because, again, that's disrespecting, this whole culture of Black people. And on top of that, especially if we're Black immigrants from somewhere else, I could see how that would get under somebody's skin. Like, that's when you start to get the arguments of the xenophobic arguments of, well, stay in your country until things, your country is like ours or whatever, which I think is a very ignorant statement. I've heard other Black Americans say that, like Seren is one of those people. But I'm trying to look at it through a therapist lens here. If you are in a country that your ancestors helped to build, and they've been through a whole bunch of shit, including slavery and discrimination, and it continues, maybe slavery's over, but the discrimination and racism continues. And then you have another Black person coming from another country, shitting on you, you're going to get mad. Like, you're going to get mad because you're not being recognized for the work that you put in, right? And so I think it's very important that we learn our history because, in school, I don't think when I was in America, I'm in Canada now. So sometimes it might be confusing, guys, because I'll refer to here and I'm talking about America because it hasn't been that long since I've been in Canada. And when I was in school, I felt like there was not enough learning or information about Black history. Me and my sister, we dug deep. We read a lot of books. We really, really, really studied the history because I feel like that's important for us to get, right? Especially when coming from a different country, different part of the world, where our histories are somewhat similar, but not really. It was important for me to learn that. So that's the other thing I think a lot of Black immigrants, we should educate ourselves about, what has actually happened in the Americas or wherever you are, in Canada. So that was my second perceived disrespect or insult that I think really, really gets under people's skin. When we think about culture, I've heard people say stupid things like Black Americans have no culture. That is a lie. There is a rich culture for Black Americans. But then I've also heard a lot of Black Americans hate on other Black people in the diaspora and say, well, they steal things from us. And I'm like, we're constantly stealing and borrowing from each other. Okay. If you really think about it, rap was influenced by reggae in many ways, right? And then these days you can see how they influence each other. So to me, it's just petty arguments. Again, why can't we just celebrate? Why can't we celebrate our differences and the things that we bring to the table instead of picking apart what somebody else stole or what somebody else did? It makes no sense to me, because I feel like we could find that on both sides, or any sides, any culture in the diaspora, because we influence each other. We were spread, very, very far apart by slavery, right? So I don't get that. And, feel free to drop in the chat if you disagree, or if you agree. Please don't be shy. I am not the type of person who I get really revved up about people who disagree with me. In fact, I will be dropping the link once I get some of my points out if people want to join. But, I just don't, some of those arguments aren't helpful. They're just not helpful. I don't understand them. So, growing up as a Caribbean American, as a Jamaican in the States, I feel like I didn't experience tons of discrimination. Oh, Chocolate Bay says, great point. Black Americans need to educate themselves on slavery, revolts, injustices in the Caribbean. Thank you, Chocolate Bay. Let me tell you, this brother right here, like, he is so on point. He just gives me so much hope. Very intelligent, very on point. And so thank you so much, Chocolate Bay. Like, I really appreciate that. And I agree. Like, I felt like I had to learn about, what happened with Black Americans in America. And I do think that the same is true, should be true for, other Black people in the diaspora. We should learn about each other. We should learn about what we've been through, so that we can actually have empathy, more empathy for each other. So that's a very good point. So, I didn't experience tons of discrimination growing up Jamaican in America, because I was also surrounded by a lot of other West Indians. And, mostly I felt like it was some of my African friends that really got it, but it depends, because people have stereotypes in their heads about Africans. Like, I heard this one guy when I was in undergrad, he was interested in me, and, I wasn't really feeling him, but I was like, okay, let's see where this goes. And then he said some crazy shit that really, I was like, nope, there's no chance. And he was like, I think I wanted to go to, I forget which country in Africa I wanted to go. It was a Christian college. So I was going to mission trips. I'm a different place now. But anyway, I wanted to go, I think it was Uganda. And he was like, oh, you're about to go where all the lions are. And then he was like, doing these weird, gestures as though he was hunting. And it just irritated me, because it was just like, do you understand that there's African countries that like are mad rich, okay? And like, these people will blow us away right now, right now. Not even just rich, but education. Like, it's just, people think of Africa as just this destitute place with, people begging for food all the time. I'm not saying this isn't real in some places, or that they're uneducated. Like, I'm just like, yo, Africans are lit. Like, it was just crazy. So I just was like, oh no, no, we're not, this isn't going anywhere. So, just to give examples of, even as Black people, just how uneducated we are about other people. And I'm not saying I have all the answers, by the way, because I still have a lot to learn, but just different things I've noticed. So, there's all types of stereotypes, not respecting each other's culture, not respecting even simple things as food, right? Some people will celebrate and love the food. Other people, I gave an example earlier, people will hate on that. And I just think that, again, some of these things mirror the arguments that white supremacists have. It mirrors the arguments that xenophobes have. And it just mirrors so much of that argument. And I don't think Black people see that shit. Like, for example, when Seren was saying, oh yeah, you need to stay in your own countries, don't come here, or, to me, that's xenophobic, right? Or when Nosy Ho, is spreading lies about an entire island of people. It's like, what? This is some shit that the white supremacists would say. How is it different from when Trump said all the Mexicans are rapists? They're not, Mexico's not sending their best. It's the same thing. So we don't understand how, and again, everybody in the diaspora does this. We don't understand how we push that argument of white supremacy further. They don't even have to work. They could take their hoods off now, because yeah, it's very dangerous rhetoric, Chocolate Bay, very dangerous rhetoric. And I don't think people understand that. That's what pains my soul. That's what upsets me, because people don't pay attention to that. They're not paying attention to it. So let's switch gears a little bit. So now I'm going to talk about the argument that Black immigrants give white people too many passes. Okay, I'm going to try to come up with examples. There's better examples than these, but this is what off the top of my head, what I can think of. So we have Chet Hanks, okay? Every time I listen to that damn video, I just laugh so hard because I'm like, what the fuck is this dude saying? Chet Hanks says, he was at the Golden Globes and he was like, big up the Oil Island massive. It's your boy Chatana. What the fuck is Chatana? Your name is Chat. It was just, he was trying to speak patois. I don't know if he's with a Jamaican woman, child. I don't know what was going on, but he's been doing that, right? And good morning, Gemini love. Thank you for being in the chat, love. He was saying all this stuff and he was, trying to speak patois. And so, a lot of people were mad at him. I'm not going to speak for all Jamaicans. I'm not going to speak for all Jamaicans. But, for me, it was a kiki because I didn't get aggravated by it. I was laughing because I was like, yo, like, this shit is funny. He's trying, but, I don't even know what he's saying. It's your boy Chatana. I think he's trying to say it's your boy Chet, but his accent is messed up, right? So to me, I'm like, who cares? Who cares that he's doing this? Unless he's like going further and then being extra disrespectful. But then there were other people who were mad. Like a lot of Black Americans were mad because they were like, yo, why is he trying to speak patois? And then the Black Americans, some of them got mad at us like, oh, y'all give white people too many passes. But I'm going to speak from a Caribbean or West Indian place because that's what I know. I can't speak for the other people. But I do feel like there's two sides to this. I do think in the Caribbean, right, and in Jamaica, for example, in my country, we don't have the same fixations on race. Colorism is the biggest issue that I saw growing up. Like, I grew up seeing leaders that look like me. I grew up seeing, like, being in a country, Jamaica's very diverse, by the way. People think Jamaica's just full of Black people. There's Chinese people, there's white Jamaicans, there's all kinds of Jamaicans, but obviously Black is the most dominant culture there. So again, I'm like, I feel like colorism is more of an issue. I'm not saying racism doesn't exist at all in Jamaica, but it's very different. It's a very different dynamic. So I think the way Caribbeans or Jamaicans look at certain things is very different than Black Americans because we're like, oh, it's just this white boy. He's trying to speak patois. He's not saying, but let him start talking crazy. And that's when the machetes come out. See, that's what you have to understand. The things that trigger us might be different. So I personally, it's annoying, but I'm not mad at Chet Hanks. Like, to me, I don't, but I also have learned a lot about cultural appropriation being in America, seeing how, our cultures are raped and pillaged and, monetized by other people who aren't us. So I do think that as Black immigrants, we need to be more aware of that. We need to be more aware. And sometimes we do give people too many passes, right? I do think that is true. That could be true at times. But I think, again, it just depends on the way you're looking at it and your worldview. Same thing with Adele. Adele was decked out in a Jamaican flag bikini. I think this might have been last year. I don't remember. Child, they drug her for filth. They were like, Adele, you need to take that flag off. And it was like, shout out to the Black Americans because it was a lot of them going hard. And then meanwhile, again, Jamaicans in the chat, laughing or bigging up Adele, like, oh yeah, she's wearing our flag. But it's not, people looked at that as white worship when really the way they're looking at it is Adele was celebrating our culture, right? So you see how I'm trying to like help you guys look through different windows here, that in America, typically what we see is white people stealing shit. Like I talk about the Kardashians. I can't stand those heifers. Okay. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Okay. That did piss me off. I think she did cross the line there. I was like, take them Bantu nuts out your hair. So you see how like different things trigger us. I'm like, I can't wear Bantu nuts to work without getting heads turned. So you need to take them motherfucking Bantu nuts out your head, Adele, because you don't know about this life. So I agree. I agree with Chocolate Bay there. Like, to me, that was just a line, but I digress. So, the Kardashians, that's the kind of stuff that they do all the time. They're constantly stealing our stuff. They're constantly, they're constantly, Chocolate Bay, I can't even wear Havana twist without getting 101 questions. Oh, did your hair grow? Oh, shut the fuck up. Anyway, sometimes I just get fatigued. I just get a little compassion fatigue, Anyway, so it's just the Kardashians drive me insane. Even just this morning, I saw a headline about, I don't remember, one of them stealing assholes about like tequila, creating a tequila brand, and she's being, I think it's Kendall, being accused of appropriation. And I'm like, this is the same news story. Just they're switched their names out. Every week, just do a running news story about how the Kardashians are appropriating this week. Because that's literally what they do. They have no ideas for themselves. They don't know, like, I don't understand how those people are so rich because they don't have any original ideas. That's just me. I can't stand them. They irritate my soul. I'm still mad at what's your name? I don't even remember the tall one who was wearing Bantu knots and trying to be Storm and shit like that. I don't like them because they're constantly stealing our shit, and we can't do that same. We, as a Black woman, again, like I said, I can't go and I can wear Bantu knots, but it's going to be different. It's going to be taken differently. Most people aren't going to be like, oh my gosh, it's so beautiful, or that's so cool. And the other thing is, I hate when white people tell you something is cool. That's not a compliment to me. You need to say it's beautiful. You need to say it looks nice. Cool is not, nope, try again. Because to me, I don't know, sometimes it just irritates me when they say stuff like that. When I was going into the office, I had to dye my hair jet black. Exactly. Because I dyed my tips blonde. Okay, Chocolate Bay, talk about it. That's what I'm saying. Like, especially when you're in certain jobs, when you're in corporate, or like, there are certain places you have to do things. You can't wear certain styles, right? They might not flat out come out and tell you, but there's ways to make you uncomfortable. They try to make you uncomfortable. There are people who will try to tell you, but I hope their asses get sued. Or they try to package it as, this is our dress code. This is like, that's the kind of stuff that they do. I had this one lady, quick story, when I was working in the trauma department in Philly. It was crazy to me. That whole department was predominantly white, but we were like offering services to Black and Hispanic kids. And there was only like 3 of us that were therapists of color out of like a group of therapists that were like 15, right? Like, look at the disparity there. And so the 2 heads were white. And there was one of them, she thought she was Mr. Roberty Queen. And, she was a tall blonde woman, and she was just kind of stereotypical. She was very smart, but she just came off as kind of ditzy the way she approached things. And I know I can just tell by the way she talked about other people that she was just confused about my natural hair. And honey, the more she did it, the bigger the fro got. Because it's like, you're not finna tell me how to wear my hair, especially not in a whole group of, white therapists who aren't multiculturally competent, working with Black and Hispanic kids. If you don't get the fuck out of here, like, it's just crazy to me. So sometimes I do it a little bit more. I'm like, oh, you want a little bit more African? Here we go. Fro, activate. Like that. I don't play those games. No, you're not about to do that. So sometimes you just have to be a little bit extra. But other places, it can endanger your job, right? Like you can't do stuff like that. So, which is a problem. So those are examples of how sometimes Black Americans think that Black immigrants give white people too many passes. Sometimes we do, but again, sometimes it's because of the way we look at things. When you're looking through somebody else's window, just like earlier when I said, let's look through the window of a Black American, if we can. I'm not saying this is completely accurate, but if you help to build a country and you're treated like a second-class citizen, the last thing you need is another Black person from another country telling you how lazy you are, how much you ain't shit, and how you need to get over slavery. No, that is not the argument that we need to be having, right? So let's talk about the distancing. So sometimes I feel, we're going to switch gears here again. Sometimes I feel like folks want to be everything but of African descent. This bothers the F out of me. Like, and I see this a lot, and I see it, there's like a new wave of what I feel are Black Americans who do this, right? They are like, no, I'm not African, I'm Native American. I'm not talking about people who actually are Native American, by the way. And there's some people that I've watched that I really like some of their content, but when they start talking about we're the original Indians and stuff, and again, if you disagree, feel free to drop down in the chat. I'm not afraid of disagreement here, or I'm not upset by it. But I'm like, how do you say we're the original Indians? So what about the Native Americans? What about the indigenous people of North America? Do they just not exist? Like, how do you explain who they are? Thank you, Chocolate Bay. Thank you. This is what I'm saying. You get it. I'm like, what do you mean we're the original Indians? Like, bruh, you haven't even accepted that you have African descent, but you over here talking about we the original Indians. Like, leave them Native Americans alone. Leave the indigenous people of Canada alone. Like, you can't just come in and strip these people of who they are and take it to be your own. That's the same shit that racist white people do. That's the same shit that cultural appropriators do. So I personally am one who is not, I am not a supporter of that argument. Okay. I believe my ancestry is African. I think a lot of us are mixed. I think there's a lot of us that does have indigenous. When I say indigenous, I'm like the native blood, that's different. But don't sit up there and tell me that we're the original Indians when I'm just blackity black. Make it make sense. Okay. I don't understand. It's just weird to me. But if somebody wants to break it down, they can. And I'm not talking about full facts like Young Pharaoh. He's out here. There's times that I like Young Pharaoh, but I just, anyway. So I've heard people, almost playing down the blackness. Thank you, Chocolate Bay. That's exactly what I'm talking about. So folks want to be everything but of African descent. So much so, there's this distancing, and they're like, I'm not wearing no dashikis, or you don't have to wear dashikis, but bro, you're from African descent. Like, it doesn't matter how much you want to deny it. It's just facts. Like, what? It's just crazy. It makes no sense to me. So that irritates me. Or sometimes I feel like people get mad when other Black cultures celebrate who they are, right? They celebrate who they are through whatever cultural customs. It's weird when people hate on that. I don't understand that at all. So again, I think that's a disconnection from, and not because, like I said, Black Americans have a very rich culture, and a lot of times that's downplayed. And there are people who don't understand that they have a rich culture, unfortunately. So I think sometimes it breeds jealousy when it's like, you don't need to be jealous. You have a rich culture, right? So the other thing is, and this might be a touchy subject. Again, please let me know what your thoughts are. So there are two movements, the FBA's Foundational Black Americans, that's mostly, I think, pushed by Tariq Nasheed, and the ADOS movement, American Descendants of Chattel Slavery. Now, these are new terms that I've learned in the last couple years. I support a lot of, so I'm going to explain it the best way that I can. If reparations come for the U.S., those aren't my reparations. I am not an American descendant of chattel slavery. Yes, I am a descendant of slavery, but in the Caribbean. So I don't think, as much as I would love to get a check cut for me, I don't think that America is the one who needs to pay that to me. Okay, it's gonna have to be the Brits. I'm not gonna dip into Black Americans' reparations just because I immigrated to the country. I support that argument that the ADOS have, and I think like a lot of people might get upset about that. I support that argument. However, we start with the good and we're gonna go into the bad. What I don't support about some ADOS and FBA arguments is the hatred towards other Black immigrants, other Black people in the African diaspora. I'll start with Tariq Nasheed because his is a newer movement, and I stopped watching him because the hate and vitriol that he has for non-Black Americans irritates my soul. Like, you have a whole big platform and you're investing time into othering yourself and talking about how other Black people aren't shit and how only the foundational or fundamental, I might be saying it wrong. It might be fundamental Black Americans or foundational Black Americans. I can't remember. Please correct me in the chat if you know. You're sitting up here exalting one group and debasing the other. Why can't you just support your cause without tearing down other people? That shit irks my soul, guys. Like, I don't understand that at all. Why can't you push your movement without tearing down Caribbeans, Africans, like Black Brits? Make it make sense. I don't understand that at all. And that's the kind of shit that I'm talking about where, people are just so pressed for the diaspora wars. If you want to push your movement, if you want to say, these are the things that I really want to see for Black Americans, for, fundamental or foundational Black Americans, these are the things I want to push. I respect that. Like I said, reparations, like, I need to be loving and caring enough to support that movement for Black Americans, because unless, I don't know how they're going to figure it out, because there are people who are second generation, whatever. But anyway, to me, that irritates me. It irritates me. I stopped watching him. He was hating on Africans. He makes comments about like Caribbean people. I already said this before in other videos. You're not going to disrespect me. Thank you. It's not inclusive. Thank you, Chocolate Bay. I'm not going to sit up there in your chat and you're going to disrespect me and I'm going to laugh and kiki with you. It's never going to be that. I don't give a F who you are. I don't care how big and how popular you are. You're just not. You're not going to do it. I agree. Black Americans weren't the only ones enslaved. Thank you. So it doesn't make sense to me. Like, it's like, again, educate yourself on the slavery of other people. Because, as much as some people hate on Black immigrants, we have to educate ourselves on, what you're going through or what your people have been through, through the ages. And I think that's important that we're doing that for each other. So that irritates me. Same thing, with the ADOS movement. I'm not going to speak for everybody because I know that there aren't people, not everybody is like that. Not everybody's hateful. But I have seen some people in the ADOS movement that are very, vitriolic and just like, again, how is your argument going to prosper? Like at the end of the day, guys, we're one of those group of people who are so divisive and so separate. And a lot of that is from slavery. We can't get it together. Mexicans come to the U.S. They live in the same house. I'm not saying this all Mexican guys. They band together. They do what they got to do. And then when they like, get an opportunity, then they go on and move about their business and still support their group. A lot of Asian people come to America, okay, to the point that some of them disrespecting the Black community. Stick together, look out for each other, and then, everybody wins. I don't understand as Black people, we haven't gotten that yet. We have not gotten that lesson. And it's just weird. It's weird to me. And a lot of Black immigrants do that. When I have a lot of family members who they came to America and they worked their ass off, sometimes living in people's houses, working, so they can send money back to their family. That's what I'm talking about. Like sometimes that's just missing. People are focused on the wrong things. We're so busy stepping on each other's necks, tearing each other down, finding, fault to other people. We don't even know what that looks like to be a cohesive community. We're literally looking for ways to divide ourselves. I don't understand. Again, you can celebrate your differences. I think there's room for us to celebrate our differences and, not have to create divisiveness with that. Like that's possible. So I don't understand that. Chocolate Bay says reparations could include free education. Thank you. Exactly. So everybody benefits, housing, etc. It doesn't have to be only monetary gain. Thank you, Chocolate Bay. Big up. He knows what he's talking about. See, he's thinking about future generations, not just give me my check now so I can go do this, and like a lot of us, do we even know what would we do with the money, right? A lot of us aren't even financially literate. And by financially literate, I mean, now again, I can't speak for the entire Black community. That's not what I'm trying to do. But I know personally, I had to learn financial literacy. My parents were not good with money, period. It's no shade to my mom. I don't give a shit about my dad, but no shade to my mom. I love her. She did a good job raising us, but that was one of her shortcomings. She was not financially literate. Like, you just live in paycheck to paycheck. I had to learn those things. So just imagine people getting a bunch of money and not knowing about how to save and, how to invest or how to like allocate funds. Do you know what a disaster that would be? We would probably end up funneling a lot of that money back into corporations and businesses that don't give a shit about us in the first place. So I love Chocolate Bay's idea of, how to include free education, housing, etc., things like that. Okay. Or land ownership. There's a lot of things. So, that's my beef. That's my only beef with those two movements is that it's just, I don't understand the rhetoric. So let's talk about how we can work towards healing. So there's a couple things that, and this could be an ongoing conversation. I think that that's why I call it a series. There's different pieces that we can talk about. And then actually, I'm going to go ahead and post a link. If people want to, they can come up. But there's certainly no pressure to. So how do we work towards healing? I think that we have to first find ways to validate each other. Okay. I keep thinking about that Dave Chappelle skit. I'm rich, bitch. Chocolate man can't stand you. Exactly. That shit is epic. Oh, I need to go watch that episode. I love Chappelle. Yeah, like we have to learn what to do with the money. Again, people are going to get mad. I'm not saying we shouldn't get that money. And we, meaning, I'm supporting Black Americans in getting that money because, again, I don't think I'm entitled to it, at least not from the US. So, from a different country. But I think that's a real conversation. Are people, and there are some people who are planning what they're going to do with it, and how we're going to reinvest that in our community and create generational wealth. But there's a lot of other people that sitting up there plotting to do fuck shit with it. Like, come on, like, you'll just be back in square one in a few years, just like the people who win the lottery. And a lot of those people, it doesn't end well, because if you didn't know how to manage your money when you only had $1,000, you're sure as hell are not going to magically know how to manage your money when you have $1 million. Okay. I don't care if people want to get mad, but it's just facts. So the healing piece is, I think it's important to validate each other. I gave examples of both groups saying and doing ignorant things, right? And I think part of the healing is we have to learn to validate each other. We have to. There's a lot of us who we only want to look through things through our window. We only want to talk about our struggle. Well, the Africans did this, and the Caribbeans. We can't look out other people's windows. Same thing for the Caribbeans and Africans. We have to be able to look through, what is it like growing up Black in America? Okay, where you just had the first Black president in the years of this country's history. Even though you helped build this country, you had to sit back and, be othered and all this other stuff. Like, I don't think some of us think about that. And it's very important to recognize, do you understand what a mind fuck it is to be told that you're not shit for eons? And then, like, it's crazy. It's so crazy to me that we don't see that. So we have to, I do think that, again, I'll talk to like Caribbean people, because that's what I am. We really need to step back and really look at what are the ways that we're being biased here. Yes, some Black Americans are biased towards other Black immigrants, but we are also biased against Black Americans at times. And that's something we need to heal and work on. Okay. So validating other people's struggle, validating, I see that this is something you had to experience. I see that, this is what's happening now. I see the disparities in jobs and housing and loans. And we have to be able to acknowledge that. We can't just run up in people's shit and just be like, oh, yeah, you're doing too much. You're lazy, or, you don't even know how to take advantage of this. Like, that's crazy and disrespectful. Okay. Now, are there people who are so stuck because of the things that have happened to us generationally? Absolutely. Some of us are trapped in our minds. It's not just the systemic racism. Some of us we are losing because of our mindset, right? And I think, but there's a real place for that. Instead of, waving or wagging our finger at those people, we need to think about what is going on psychologically for this person. Why is this person stuck? Why are they the most safe in thinking I am a victim, right? And again, a lot of that stuff is real. A lot of that is real. So this isn't to invalidate that there's a lot of racial disparities. I just said it. But we have to look at, why are people stuck? We can't just be like, oh, they need to get over it. It's the same thing. Once again, that's the same argument that white supremacists have when they don't want to validate the struggles that Black people are going through. Slavery was a long time ago. My ancestors, I'm going to tell you a story. I got to think about how to say it, because I got to be careful about confidentiality. But I recently just let go a client because they were racist as fuck. Okay. They said some shit, and it wasn't just that they said the shit. It was when I confronted them, they weren't ready to like be respectful. And as a therapist, we have to hold space for our clients, right? But that doesn't mean you get to disrespect me. That doesn't mean you get to shit on me. And I'm like, oh yeah, tell me about that, Sally. Tell me how much you think I'm a nigger. She didn't call me a nigger, but you know what I mean? Like, that's not what the fuck it is. So this person was mad disrespectful. And then, basically I had to transfer them to another therapist. And in the process of me closing out with her, she says, oh, but I don't understand. I looked into the history of my family and they didn't have any slaves. I just want that to sink in. She said they didn't have any slaves. And I said, and I just can't even really say what I want to say here. But I think that thinking is very similar, where people intentionally are willfully ignorant and put on their blinders so they don't have to understand somebody else's point of view. I can't possibly be racist. How the hell would you track that? How the hell would you know? Chocolate Bay, if you could see my face right now. let me. When she said that, I was like, this is the reason why your ass is getting transferred to another therapist. Okay. Like, it's just so crazy. Because how could I sit and imagine being somebody's therapist like that? How can I sit and have unconditional positive regard with somebody like that, who's literally playing in my face? Next. And I've never transferred. Let me tell you guys something. I've dealt with a lot of difficult clients. You don't run from your troubles. You don't run from difficult clients. You look for it as an opportunity to grow and help that person heal. But this was a special type of person. This type of person I could not help. And I was like, it's time for this person to get transferred to the next therapist, because it ain't going to be me. Okay. It was crazy. I said, and I'm laughing about it now, but I had to do a lot of supervision. I had to do a lot of meditation because, guys, listen, my thoughts were not kosher, okay? I was like, and that's how I knew I can't see this person. When you get to the point where you can't even work with somebody, I can't help you, because the only thing I'm going to be thinking about your ass is how evil and racist you are. I can't help you, boo. Bye. Anyway, that was my story. I can unpack a lot more there, but I just want to show you how sometimes we're willfully ignorant and we don't want to take the time to really look at ourselves, because it's easier to just say, well, it's just something, you're just sensitive. You're just sensitive. This is, something's wrong with the other people. We have to learn how to validate each other. We have to learn how to validate each other's experiences. That's part of the healing work. Also, same thing along those lines. We have to know how to look through someone else's window. This is a big piece that I took away from. I think Irvin Yalom, he was a group therapist, right? He was a famous group therapist, did a lot of work. And I learned this is one of the things I took away from that class, one of those classes in grad school, learning to look through other people's window. That was a technique that he used. That was how he conceptualized it, to help people to see other people. I do think, and I'm going to talk about the collective here, sometimes I think as Black people, we are so blinded by our own pain and suffering that we can't make room to see what other people have experienced, other people groups. It doesn't mean we have to abandon our own struggle or our own fight, but sometimes we can't even validate what another group is going through because we're fearful that the spotlight will be taken off of us, or, we'll go back into oblivion and people won't pay attention to our struggles. And I do think that is also going to hinder us. I'm not saying we should, abandon our cause and go fight somebody else's battle. I'm not saying that either, but I'm saying we have to be able to look through other people's windows, because that will help us to also heal. So sometimes in the work that I do, my job is to help people and to help bring them healing, help them to get to their paths of healing. I'm not healing them, they're doing the work, but I'm helping to facilitate that. Sometimes in the process, I end up getting gems from my life indirectly. Now, I don't tell the client, oh yeah, seeing you go through this makes me feel like I need to change this. I'm not going to tell them that. It's not my session. But I think it's the same thing with this type of work, is that we have to be able, you can get healing gems for your journey from other people. We're not the only people group who've suffered tremendously. It's just that I think it's hard for us to do it because we've been invalidated for so long, right? We've been invalidated for so long that we're like, no, I can't share my compassion because too many people, have been ignoring us for too long. And that is true, but I don't think it should make us be calloused and can't look at somebody else somebody else's plight. So same thing outside of the community, same thing within the community. We have to be able to look at each other and see what we're going through and challenge the ways that we have white supremacist thinking, xenophobic thinking, right? What are the narratives that we have that align with that we don't realize? Okay, this is America, speak English. What? Do you know in Canada, like the kids are learning French because it's a bilingual country. You are learning French in school, but only in America you have people talking about something. It's America, speak English. Bitch, what? Chocolate Bay said, very powerful though with helping others. You see tidbits you could use that absolutely, Chocolate Bay. Absolutely. Good morning, Ben Stinker. Hey, love. My people. So, this is where I'm at. I don't know if anybody wants to stream in and has anything they want to add. I'll give it a few minutes for that. But this conversation was on my heart because I've been seeing this brewing and I just think it's just going to keep getting worse. And like I said, there's just some people I stopped following. If your rhetoric is so divisive that it's like cutting off one hand to help the other, I'm not going to support you. I'm not. Because I think there's a way for you to push your movement without shitting on other people. Other people don't need to be casualties in your movement. It doesn't make any sense to me. Because I guarantee you, and I said this before, there are some videos I wish I didn't delete, that I didn't remove when I deleted my old channel. Thank you, Binge. I appreciate that, sis. But when it comes to, if you're walking down the street and it's a lone street, and, it's a Black American, it's a Caribbean American, and an African walking down the street, and there's a whole group of white supremacist ass, Nazi ass, neo-Nazi ass bitches. Do you think they give a F if you're from the Caribbean, if you're American descendant of chattel slavery, if you are straight out of Zimbabwe? They give no Fs. All they see is your Black skin. Okay, that's not to say that those things, separations aren't important. I'm not saying that. But we miss the point when we start promoting our own cause at the detriment of other people in the diaspora. That's dangerous. And again, you're working for the white supremacists without realizing it, because their goal is to destroy, to divide, and to conquer. Okay, a lot of the work is already being done within our community. They don't even have to touch us. They don't even have to put on a hood and go do some F-ish, because we do it to ourselves. And I don't understand how people don't see that. I don't understand how they're missing the meta story here. And so those group of roving white supremacists don't give a F where you're from. They don't give a F what your culture is. They're just going to see that Black skin and they know they hate your ass. Okay, so let's not forget that. Let me find my banner here. I'm gonna read this again. Okay, I'm gonna put this back up there. Our enemy is not each other. Our enemy is always white supremacy, capitalism, colonialism, and imperialism. That is what I think we need to remember when, we want to be tempted to do these diaspora wars. I think that we need to keep having these conversations. What are the ways that we've hurt each other as a diaspora? What are the ways that we dismiss each other? Because we all do it. All of the cultures do it. It's not just one person over the other. We all do it, guys. I gave you examples of growing up, things I've heard, right? And from both sides. So we need to really pay attention to this, because it's festering and it's just, I can't. And so I said, I just eliminate those people from my life, because to me, I'm gonna lump you in the white supremacist box. If you over here talking about whole countries of people and how we ain't shit, something ain't right, something reeks. I don't want no parts of you, because at the end of the day, I really think I want to see healing for Black people as a people. I want to see that. I want to see that happen for us. And I don't think it can happen when we're tearing each other down, right? Sometimes we need to check each other. Don't get me wrong. Sometimes some groups overstep and we need to be like, this is not cool. But everybody needs to have a space for that. It can't just be one group. And the other thing I forgot to talk about is unspoken hierarchies. Sometimes there's hierarchies within the diaspora. I'm not going to speculate on, who's at the top, who's at the middle, who's at the bottom, because I think that changes depending on where you are and who you're with. But we should challenge that. We should definitely challenge, why is there an unspoken hierarchy? Why? Ben said, do you think the rhetoric is for shock value? Bench thinker, sis, you know what? I think so, but it's deeper than that. Because the one woman who I was going back and forth with a couple years ago, she was like, you could tell she was 10 toes down. And I wasn't surprised that she was 10 toes down. I was surprised at the people who supported her. She has so many thousands of followers. So a lot of people checked her. Don't get me wrong. A lot of people checked her, but it's very disheartening to see that many people supporting like vitriolic hatred and stuff. And so that's why I just leave. I'm like, no, I'm not doing this. Hey, my small space. I'm like, I'm not doing this. Like I don't have time for this. I barely have energy to fight white supremacy. Where the hell am I going to get energy to fight some other black person? Because they acting like one. What? Does anybody else get exhausted from this fight? Because I sure the fuck do. I get exhausted. So I don't have time to be fighting other black people. I just don't. It is hurtful to hear. And I'm always going to call it out. I'm always going to call it out. And it's not just, if you guys notice, I don't just call it out for Jamaicans, okay? I'm going to call your ass out if you out here hating on Africans. I'm going to call your ass out if you out here hating on Black Americans. Like, what? So it's just, I don't understand it at all. I just don't understand it. And it's just very saddening. But this is all I got for y'all. I want to say real quick for the people who are here, I am going to reboot the book club. I'm going to have a theme every month, or every book cycle, we're going to have a new theme, and then we'll vote on what book. I don't have a community wall yet because, again, I'm rebuilding this channel. So I had started from scratch. So I don't have a community wall. I have to have 1,000 people. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to post a video with the 3 books that I want you guys to vote on. And please put your comments in the comment section so that I know what you're voting for, so I can choose the book based on that. We used to have a good time at book club. It was a small group, but it was so good, and I missed that. And my sister recently asked me about that too. So anyway, guys, I'm sending you so much love. I really appreciate you being here. Thank you for being here for this conversation. Again, it's totally okay to disagree with me. My small space, the face that I waited until Nosy disrespected is Jamaicans before I distanced myself. Yes. Oh, that's right, my small space. That's right. I was reading your comment. Sure, I was willing to be a party of the mess until it hit my doorstep. That part. Where's the pin here? I don't even know how to pin it in. I guess I can't pin it in StreamYard. Listen, my small space, that is facts on facts right there. And that's what happens to a lot of us. We can't until it hits our doorsteps, right? It's so hard because sometimes we don't see it. We all have our blind spots and we're like, oh yeah, it's a key. I've done it. It's a key until you're the key. And then it feels crappy. And you're like, oh, hell no. Thank you, Chocolate Bay. Thanks for being here, boo. So I love you guys. I hope you have a great Monday. I have so much training to do because I procrastinated with my CEU. So I got to get on that today. But I'll put out the book club video at some point. Ben Shinker said, we all do a small space. We all do. Exactly, Benj. We all do. So don't beat yourself up. The important thing is that we see it. So you guys have a great day. Thanks for being here. And I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye. Let me see if I can find my music. It might be gone. My outro music. Ciao. Nope, it's gone. All right, guys. Take care.